This podcast is sponsored by HBB Marketplace. If you're a small business owner and looking to grow your business but need just a few resources to get to where you need to be, visit hbbmarketplace.co. And when you do, tell them Reese G sent you.
You know, sometimes this life can get rough. You get knocked down, but you gotta get up. Keep going.
Welcome to the official companion podcast for ReVoyce's The Retreat. I'm your host, Reese G, not Cardi B, but I still get to the money. And today I have a very special guest, someone I call friend, a peer, and one of the best creative directors and choreographers that I know on this side of creation, Jeremy Copeland. Our topic today is when addressing the issue isn't enough, and I hope that you guys love our conversation just as much as I did.
We gon' give it all until the end of time.
We ain't going nowhere. We'll be standing right here until the end of time. Till the end of time. Until the end of time. Till the end of time.
What can I say about Jeremy Copeland? He's an actor, he's a creative director, an artistic director, choreographer, dancer, all the way from the boogie down Bronx, New York, now a native of Los Angeles, Hollywood to be exact. He's done so many things, and I have the pleasure of calling him friend. From being a web reality star to a star on your big screen to just being an all-around good guy. He's worked with big names such as Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Lopez, Kanye West, Pharrell, and the list goes on, and it's going to continue to go on and on. Without further ado, I want to say hey to Jeremy Copeland.
Hey Reese, how are you? I'm good. I'm really good.
I'm doing good. So we definitely got into a lot of your past as a child going into episode 3. So when you watch the episode back and you start to see yourself get into and unpack what you had been through when you was younger in your Zoom session, what was your first thought?
My first thought watching it back, first of all, as soon as I pressed play, my heart was going 1,000 miles per hour. I was like, okay, where are we going? Only because I knew that I came into this process with all intentions of doing whatever work was needed and being fully committed to the process, whether it be good, bad, ugly, and everything in between. I know that me and Joseph had some deep conversations, but I did not really remember what we had talked about in fully and what all I had shared until I saw the episode, and it was like, oof, okay, I said that, and it's now public, and I just had to remind myself, like, I have to be selfish, and this is for me, so I can't really worry about like what someone else is going to feel about what my truth is. So that's kind of where I put my mindset at to finish the episode.
Yeah. Oftentimes, I've always seen like these moments with adults, us, because we're all adults, where we kind of don't willingly let down those walls and those barriers. So when you did your Zoom session, I know it was something that, we wanted to do as far as like production, but what was your biggest reservation with doing your Zoom session with Joseph, not knowing him and just going into it like, okay, well, who is this person? Did you have any reservations, or what was your reservations, if you had any, going into it?
Um, I wouldn't say I necessarily had reservations. I think for one, what was like helpful for me was one, working with you. So I knew that anyone that you put into my space for me to open up and have these deep conversations, I think my trust for you made it easier for me to trust who he was and that be a safe space. Um, I had never spoken to a therapist. I had never had therapy. I had never had conversations with someone outside of maybe close friends about certain things that me and him had discussed. So as it was like coming out of my mouth, it was kind of like walking through like a dark tunnel and you're like one foot in front of the other. I'm not sure where this is gonna go, but I'm just gonna keep going and it's too late to turn back. So that's kind of where it was. And I was like, if you're gonna do this, like do this. That's the only way that this is really going to um, be beneficial for you and also be beneficial for the show to be as impactful as it needs to be. To be honest, like we have to do the work. So my reservations were just kind of like, here we go. I don't know where this is gonna go, but I hope there's something good out of it.
Yeah, I think that honestly, with watching it back, because I stepped away when y'all were doing the Zoom session, but watching it back, I was kind of surprised at kind of rehearing the story. And in some ways, it definitely triggered a thought for when I was going through therapy as a youngin as well. And for me, I know that I kind of had lost trust in people, which brings me to when you were going through everything that you went through at that time where you chose to venture out and move to LA and be independent and just kind of, because I don't think a lot of people really realize that when you left to go to LA, like you was out there on your own, doing it on your own, thugging it out. So what was that journey like? Like just kind of having to grow up at a young age?
My whole experience, I think my journey moving to LA started maybe a year or 6 months prior to me coming to LA. I was very young. I was 17 going on 18. And like I spoke to Joseph about, and like it was discussed tonight on the show, I had just dealt with a lot of traumatic situations with my family, with the church, which I'm not even sure if we touched that. I don't remember. With a lot of things. And so it was kind of one of those things where LA was like my saving grace. All I had was this imaginary world that I made up for myself to get me out of the world I was living in. And so I was presented with an opportunity to dance for one of my good friends. She was auditioning for Interscope. This is back when artists had to go to the label and like do a show in the office. And me and my best friend were dancing for her. Her name was Georgia Rain. Shout out to Georgia. She's a great songwriter now. But we went out there and I was like, this is it. Like, this is my free ticket. I remember I got on Craigslist and I like found a random person and moved to LA. And I struggled. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with like 8 other individuals. We shared who got the couch every other night. And I just didn't care because it was, one, for me, better than the position I was in back home. And 2, I was in LA. So it would take me 2 or 3 hours to get to the studio. I didn't have any money. I wasn't working. I was out there with $150 maybe. And I would decide, okay, well, am I going to eat there or am I going to take dance class? And I chose dance class. And the studios always had like coffee and at the back of the studio. So I would drink the coffee all day and put a lot of sugar in it. And that would be like my meal for the day to get me through the day. And then I would go back home and there was a Denny's in Westwood. Shout out to Denny's. I stole from the Malai. I used to go there, order food really late at night, tell them I lost my wallet, and I would dip out, like just to like feed myself or like steal food from like my roommates and like steal like milk, like, you know.
Mhm.
And I made it work, you know. So it was a lot, but when you've gone through so much, stuff like that is a piece of cake compared to, like, I would rather be somewhere happy and like, oh my God, I'm here in LA and living my dream. And I was always so inspired. I would walk around and just walk around Hollywood. And even though my stomach is growling and I was hungry, I was in Hollywood. Like, I didn't care. Like, I'm here. And so I just kind of held on to that faith and my wild imagination. And it just kind of led me to where I am now.
Like, were you saying that? I can recall an interview that Money Long did, and like Money Long has always been one of those silent, talented people. And I think about how long your resume is, and people don't really realize that you've done a lot of projects silently for these bigwigs. I mean, of course, we know the Mariah Carey's because we could see you in the video. We know the Todrick Hall because we could see it. But at times, you have done stuff quietly and just watched your work flourish on the big screen, on the small screen, however you want to, you know, compare it. What do you think is the number one? What was the number one motivating factor with you living with 8 people, moving away from your family, battling just the mental of being away from home, striving for your dream? What was that number one motivating factor, you think?
So my answer is going to be totally not what people expect. I've actually never said this. So growing up, because I was homeschooled majority of my life, like in and out of school, I had like this like FOMO. Like, okay. I always wanted to like be a part. Like, I grew up in a really nice neighborhood, and I always seen the kids like go to school, come home, and then there were years where I went to school, so I knew some of the kids and stuff like that. And so my social experience was going to the dance studio. And I remember when I first got to Dance 411 Studios in Atlanta, I met this guy named Sean Bankhead, who is, everyone knows he is like one of the top in the game right now. He's so amazing. And our initial meeting wasn't the greatest, you know. It was like kids on MySpace, and I was like talking big shit, just wrong, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Again, my imagination running with me, not knowing that he was in the spaces that I was pretending to be in at the time, you know. So that had already put like a bad taste in his mouth about me, you know. But I was super young. Moving forward, I always found myself yearning for like his approval, like throughout my entire career. I remember trying to sign with Block South, and Block South was like, no, we're not going to sign you. I remember flying to LA to sign with Block, and they were like, dope, because at this time, if you would sign to one, you could sign to all 3, Block, LA, New York, and Atlanta. And Block South still said, no, we're not going to sign someone that Sean does not like. Verbatim told me that. You know, he had people around him that was his friends that trained, that were professional dancers, you know, that looked at me a certain type of way because of how he looked at me and how he viewed me. But I would still take his class. I would still, you know, try to fit in, but just our initial encounter, I guess, just, you know, wasn't the greatest. And so for a long time, it took me years to realize, like, I literally would work so hard to wonder, does he approve of me now? Like, do I have his blessing now? And I remember it was like an aha moment, 2007 or 2009, I think, when I booked Beyonce for the first time, and we were shooting Run the World. We had rehearsal in this warehouse, and I remember walking in, and I looked over, and he was over there, along with some of the people that didn't really, you know, fuck with me like that because of whatever. And I remember we just looked at each other, and it was like, okay, got it. And then I think that New Year's, I got a text, and, you know, it was like, all right, like, we're cool. Like, you know, it was kind of like a text, like, I see you working hard, you're doing your thing, like, you know, everything is fine. Let's try to build a friendship. And even when I was on set for Step Up, one of the girls who would not treat me not treat me the best type of way. I was treated like shit, basically.
Mhm.
I remember
That's why
she
you
walked
played
up to,
so good.
yes, I remember she walked up to me, inside of like, I think we were at lunch or something.
Mhm.
And she just looked at me and she was like, I'm so sorry.
Mm.
I'm so sorry. And nothing else had to be said. Like, I knew where that sorry came from.
Mhm.
And it felt good. So, although me and him don't really have a relationship now, a lot of my driving force came from trying to get his approval, and that could be good or bad, but I don't want to make up a whole thing where, oh, I saw my life here and like I wanted to do good for my family. No, I had an experience and I couldn't figure out why this certain individual did not fuck with me, and I was like, if I just keep working hard, maybe this individual will finally fuck with me. And it, he still kind of doesn't, but there's like a mutual respect that we have for each other. But that was my driving force, to be honest, and I've never told anyone that. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. Yes, exclusive.
Yeah.
But and I can echo that thought because at the time that I was styling in Atlanta, I can remember working on a set and June Ambrose was there. The only time I ever saw her ever. And even though it was like, of course, she's like at the time was so untouchable. It was not like she knew who I was or anything, but it was just one compliment. And it was like during the time where junking up a model with different clothes, it was just nice. And so, she is, to me, a fashion junkie. She'll junk up something and it looks beautiful. And she just looked at, it was just a Polaroid, but she was like, I like that. I was like, oh, well, that's good for me. And it kind of validated me as a stylist at that time. So when you go into a room now with knowing that you had, in essence, had that issue with him addressed, so to speak, and you walk into these rooms as a choreographer, as a creative director, are you more aware of how you treat people now? Or do you have this air like, I'm the bad bitch in the room, which is fine, but how do you kind of walk in rooms now with knowing how that experience was for you?
I think how I show up is still in progress for me a lot of times. It depends on where I'm at, to be honest. Like, I have a trauma when I go to Atlanta. Like, when I go back to Atlanta and I'm in certain spaces and I'm around certain people from that era of time, I shrink back to the guy that wanted to fit in, no matter what my resume says, no matter what, because unfortunately there are people there, certain gatekeepers in Atlanta that still treat me as such. Like, I went back to Atlanta when I was gonna start filming Step Up, and by that time I had already worked with Beyonce, J-Lo, Neo, Ariana, Nicki, Brandy, Todrick, Blackstreet, choreographing the tour, Dawn, like I had already worked with so many people. And that same agency that I was trying to get with back then, still told me, oh, we feel like we need to have a little bit more experience. And I was just kind of like, or when they did sign me, they signed me per gig. So we're not going to give you a contract, but we'll work with you per gig. And this is while I'm filming a multi-million-dollar production of Lionsgate, Step Up, and so there's certain spaces where people make it a point to remind me of who I was back then. And so that's why, but when I'm in LA, when I go out of town, when I go to the club, when I go outside, and I had this conversation, I was just thinking about this recently, like when I was in Dallas, I was running around the mall trying to find stuff to wear because I lost my luggage, well, Delta did. And I'm at the Galleria, and this couple and their kids walk by me, and I see the guy staring at me, and I'm like, oh Lord, where's this gonna go? And he was like, oh, you're that guy, I know that shit. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, okay. Like, it's one thing to reach the gay people, there's nothing to reach the straight people. Like, it's like, it's like crossing over when you cross over to the white side. But all that to say, like, I have so much grace with myself, and I know that everything that I went through was for a reason. So I show up as just authentically me. I never feel like I'm the baddest in the room. I never feel like I'm above anyone. Even as a choreographer, when I'm walking in with my dancers, it's an even playing field. And I like to work with artists who feel the same. It's not always the same with the artists, but like that's who I gravitate to the most. And I'm always just grateful because I know that it's not everyone isn't so blessed. And not everyone has the mental capacity to go through what I had to go through just to be in certain rooms that I'm in now. And I honestly don't even think that I even have fully digested where I am in my career yet, and how much I have impacted people and who I am as a person. Because if you ask me, I still have not really done anything. So I just show up grateful, and I know that my fabrication and lies and all this stuff I did when I was younger, this imaginary world I lived in that I tried to bring everybody in, and they were like, no, you're a fucking liar. But for me, it wasn't that. It was no malice intent. It was me just like manifesting like where I seen myself and where I could see myself go. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I probably did it the wrong way. Now looking back, self-reflection, but now I'm like living better than what I could even imagine. So I just show up grateful and know that this is really just the beginning.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times people forget that, I mean, we were raised up on coming up with fake it till you make it. Like that was everything that I know for me that I was always told, like from my internship to when I started getting out there and working with people, it was always fake it till you make it, show up as who you want to be. And nowadays with just the Gen Zers, with us being millennials, I believe that it's a little bit easier to walk because we had to run through the walls for different things. And then there's other resources that people have nowadays that are wanting to aspire to be or do what we have done in the past. And I was looking at just superstars like the Donna Summers and the Tina Turners, now that they're no longer here, that there would be no Beyonce, there would be no disco queens, or even anybody in techno like a Billie Eilish to even be able to do certain things. When it comes down to people that haven't influenced you as a choreographer, as a dancer, who's your top three or top two?
I have my three. Everyone knows my love for J-Lo is crazy. I love my girl. I love her. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Britney Spears, that was someone who, like, I was a pop kid. I grew up MTV. I was not a BET kid. I was a pop kid. So Britney Spears, hands down. I remember meeting, rest in peace, Andre Fuentes. It was like we just connected so well. Like my first job in LA was Brian Friedman. So I mean, like that was just like, and we have such a great relationship now. And Missy Elliott, like Missy is like phenomenal. And what's crazy is like I remember her having an audition, and I'm not even gonna go that far. But what I love Missy. You know, Sean is over that camp, so we know how that's gonna go. But I love her. We spoke. We know each other. We've had conversations and spoken before in private, and I've gone to her for advice for certain things, and she's given me some amazing advice. And I remember actually reaching out to her back when I was out here in LA in those earlier years, and I was going through it. I remember her giving me some great advice, and I remember Lorianne giving me the best advice. And she said verbatim, "Embrace the struggle. It's because you're great." And I've always remembered that. I've always kept that close to my heart. And so, yeah.
I love that. Embrace the struggle because you are great.
It's because you're great. Yes.
It's because you're great. I love that. I'm gonna have to write that down in the back of my, and on the forefront of my forehead for that one. I love that. As we watched episode 2, we saw that at the time where Joseph was saying that there will be projects where you're not good enough and things that you may have auditioned for, you see it like coming to fruition and you kind of made a face. How often do you think that you get looked over because of someone may or may not, or may be perceived as better? Does that happen often to you?
Yeah, that's just if you work in entertainment, like it's literally your job to show up for people to tell you no. This is the only career where people can literally say like they won't hire you because you're black. They won't hire you because you're tall, because you're gay. You don't fit this criteria. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I resonated to the most was he mentioned something about like waiting for a job and then you look up and they're filming. You know, that happened to me with Step Up, you know, like we had finished season 2 and we were all, you know, getting ready to do season 3, discussing contracts, are we going to buy a house, whatever. And then that's when Naya Rivera passed away. And today is actually the 3-year anniversary of her death. So that's why I was a little behind. I was making some posts on my Instagram for her. But so when that happened, it pushed production back and I was still being told like, oh no, we're good and this and that. And, you know, next thing I know, I'm seeing posts on Instagram of them filming, you know? So like I was never told we're not using you this season, or like I wasn't told nothing. And that's just how the industry goes. Like you're women, you're thinking, oh, I'm about to make X amount of money, you know, for this season. You know, life's about to get a little bit better. And then you check your Instagram and the show is filming and you're not on it. And that's just kind of how it goes with no questions, or they don't have to tell you anything. So that's more so what I resonated to. But, you know, I'm used to that, and that's why I don't really get excited about nothing until it's shot, done, and put out. Not even if I filmed it, because if I filmed it, that can even go to scraps. So, you know, it could be a good or bad thing. I don't really get excited about things anymore. I'm always hopeful, but because I just know how things go, I just kind of brace myself for what. But that also helps me in situations when I'm, you know, helping others. Like, you know, when you're dealing with what you're dealing with and stuff is coming your way and it's like, I don't know what's happening, I'm able to kind of like offer that advice where like, because I've been there, like I know how it is, I know how these things go. You're like I'm so thankful for you working with me and dealing with me through this. And I'm like, yeah, because I know how it goes, and it's hard, and it's not easy. So that's kind of where I put my mindset, and that's why I made that face, because I was just kind of like I understand exactly what you're saying. So yeah, I can't help my face. It shows everything.
Yeah, it does. And I'm right there with you. I mean, if people could only know about the conversations that we've had, well, I know you have definitely kept me inspired and kept going, which I appreciate. When you and Red were in the room, day 1, which we saw, and y'all were talking, and you did a very grown-up thing, which is get up and walk out. As you were trying to address the issue, it just seemed like it wasn't enough. In your opinion, do you think that more often than not, black men, gay black men, have a tough time hearing each other?
Yes, I do. And I think that it's, in my opinion, I feel like both parties play a part in that. I feel like a lot of people do not really know how to articulate what they're trying to say so that others hear them. And I feel like the other party, a lot of times, they're not really listening to understand. They're listening to respond because everybody wants to make a point. And so I think a lot of times when you hear people say, or like when I say, okay, I'm gonna just be quiet and let you talk, it may come across a certain type of way, but that's me stepping back and being like, I'm gonna just let you, because there's no way you're gonna hear what I need to say if you keep talking. So I'm just gonna shut up and let you get out what you gotta get out, and then I'm gonna speak. And I feel like I did really, really good. I was really proud of myself. I feel like I did really good with like articulating what I wanted him to possibly understand where I was coming from. Did that happen? No, but I was glad, that I did that on my end. I feel like I was very adult-ish about
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah. And I think that people always kind of forget that it takes a lot to one, be vulnerable, to express what you have gone through, what you're currently going through. And then addressing an issue is also a form of courage, which also equals into vulnerability. So as you have grown, become an adult, adulting like we all do, being real adults, because you're a real adult after 26. But I don't know what
yes,
happened after 26. Is something that happens.
baby.
What is a piece of advice that you can give the listeners on actually being vulnerable and how helpful it is or has been for you?
What has helped me and what has continued to work for me is you just have to be 200% honest with yourself first. Like you have to really, because the unpopular opinion, we lie to ourselves every day. Like we
Hmm.
really will sit here and lie to ourselves and then make ourselves believe the lie to ourselves. So
Hmm.
once we get out of that, like I lead with strict honesty
Hmm.
within myself first, whether it be friendships, what I like sexually, what kind of people I want to be around, where I want to be, where I don't want to be, what jobs I
Hmm.
want to take. Like I have to really be full and honest within, and then that will bleed out.
Hmm.
That will help me communicate better. That will help me make the better decisions. That will help you be more in tune with your spirit, where you know if you're in a space that just doesn't sit right, and you can leave, or if you're around a group of people that they're like, I don't really fuck with y'all like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of like remove yourself. That's
Hmm.
the advice. Like, be honest with yourself. Like, really sit down and map out different parts of your life and really figure out like where am I being honest and where am I being dishonest with myself, because that's really the only thing you can control. I feel like a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to kind of like navigate what other people are going to do, and you really cannot do that. um, so that's what works for me. Just be 100. And there are going to be people that rock with you and your honesty, and there are going to be people who don't like your honesty. And here's a harsh reality: the closest people to you, and probably people you that have been around you the longest, may not really care for the honest you, and that's a-okay. You have to be pretty bold and stand firm in your healing for yourself, and whatever that means for you. And lastly, I was watching an interview because that's my new thing in the mornings. When I'm heading out and when I go home, I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts. And I was watching a podcast with oh my god, what is her name? She talks so soft and she like has like the Target line. I can't remember what her name is.
Oh, Tabitha
Um,
Brown.
Tabitha Brown, yes.
Hmm.
She did an interview on Small Doses with Amanda Seales. And
Hmm.
she was saying how, anyway, she had this moment where she was in the bathroom and she told God, whatever you have for me,
Hmm.
I give up. Like, I will do it. And that
Hmm.
was the most honest moment she had with herself. She was looking at herself in the mirror and she said from then, like, things just started happening. But in those things happening, test was given and God was like, well, you told me if I heal you,
Hmm.
you have to you're gonna do what I say you need to do. So that's where I'm at with
Hmm.
everything. Like I'm just following like my steps and I'm letting God lead me, where I need to go. And I'm not a very spiritual, like, religious person, but I know the only way I made it this far and still being alive in some of the situations I put
Hmm.
myself in, it's God. So, as an adult, as a grown man now, I'm about to be 33A. Um,
Hmm.
I'm just talking less, listening more, and I'm focused and I'm very clear on what I want and what I don't want. But in my clearness, I'm not delusional, and I'm not letting my ego also run what I need to do as well. So
Yeah. I think that's good too. I mean, I think that at times we forget to. Ego is good. We can put it on the front street, and then we know how to put it back. I can recall Taraji P. Henson saying with Angie Martinez, unchecked ego is the source of failure. It's the source of negativity. And as long as you check your ego and you're mindful of your ego, then you know how to navigate it. Because we all need ego. I mean, it makes us unique. I mean, we need it. But I can definitely see where you're coming from when you say that, for sure. And just to put it to the side and lead with grace versus leading with ego. So I thank you for our conversation.
Yes,
I'm
this was
so
good.
excited. I'm so excited to see what else because there's more. There's more to come.
Oh my God.
There's definitely more to come, but I appreciate you for just being vulnerable while filming the retreat and just honestly expressing yourself on a platform like you've never done before with a mindset of, you know what, I'm addressing this issue. This address may not be enough, but at least I said what I needed to say.
Yeah, it's important. I just want to thank you for giving us the platform to be shown in a different light. This project seems like, you know, when an artist has like that one personal album for them, like the Lemonades or like Brandy's Human, where, you know, you may feel like, oh, this isn't the commercial album where like all 5-7 tracks are going to go number one, but this is the one that is going to hit people the most, and this is the one that people are going to run to when they need healing or when they need to feel better, when they need a break from the world that we're in. So I just want to give you that like love and just let you know that this is needed, and it may be a hidden gem that people jump onto years down the line and they're like, oh shit, like what is this? It may not be that commercial album, but it's going to be the album that people need. And I'm glad to be a part of this journey. And ever since I left that retreat and I spoke to Joseph and we did those exercises, like I really have been like moving different and being more conscious. So I'm really excited to watch it back. And, you know, I love everybody that was on the show. I bumped into them in Dallas. So like everyone is great. I'm glad that we all got to experience that. Yeah, I wish it's something that we could like do every year. I know we gotta switch the people up, but yeah, you know.
I mean, you know, we may be able to do a little something and, you know, get everybody back together because you're always in Dallas, so you never know.
I want to buy property there soon, but yeah, thank you.
You might as well. But thank you so much, Jeremy.
Life will come at you hard, from experiencing people you don't know to people that you have been drawn to know. It's just the way that we're created as humans on this earth. I believe that the ancestors, God, and the universe, no matter what you believe, put us in situations to learn from them, whether they're hard or come with the most beautiful of ease. I have to say that I thank Jeremy Copeland for our conversation and just being vulnerable enough to show his true, authentic self, on top of giving us a dose of what it means to be courageous. Join me next time on episode 4 of this podcast so we can talk about what happens on the retreat, as well as talk to another guest. Again, this has been the companion podcast for ReVoyce's The Retreat. I'm your host, Reese G, not Cardi B, but I still get to the money. And I can't wait to continue to express my opinion from my mouth to your ears.